right, we're straight away going across to the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony. Take a look.
Juan Requesens is ordered to turn slowly towards the camera. The video showing him standing with a dazed look, as if in a fog, wearing underwear stained with excrement. He had supposedly confessed to planning a coup, but of course, there was no proof. The day before his arrest, Juan had stood before the National Assembly. He gave a speech in which he repeated one key sentence, a promise to his country and to himself: I refuse to give up. Alfredo Diaz, an opposition leader and former mayor, was pulled from a bus last November and thrown into the depths of El Coide, Latin America's largest torture center. One more political prisoner in a long line of others. This week came the news of his death. Another life gone, another victim of the regime. These stories are not unique. This is Venezuela today. It is how the Venezuelan regime treats its own people: a sister, a student, a politician. Anyone who still believes in stating the truth out loud may disappear violently into a system built specifically to eradicate this belief. Samantha, Juan, and Alfredo were not extremists. They were ordinary Venezuelans dreaming of freedom, democracy, and rights. For this, their lives were stolen from them. Under this regime, children are not spared. More than 200 children were arrested after the elections in 2024. The United Nations documented their experience as follows: plastic bags pulled tight over their heads, electric shocks to the genitals, blows to the body so brutal it hurt to breathe, sexualized violence, cells so cold as to cause intense shivering, foul drinking water teeming with insects, screams that no one came to stop. One child lay in the dark, whispering his mother's name over and over, in the hope she would not believe he was dead. A 16-year-old boy eventually came home, so ravaged by electric shocks and beatings that he could not hug his mother without pain shooting through his body. For months, he jumped at every sound and barely slept. At night, he would wake with a jolt, convinced the soldiers were back to resume their attacks. As we sit here in Oslo City Hall, innocent people are locked away in dark cells in Venezuela. They cannot hear the speeches given today, only the screams of prisoners being tortured. This is how authoritarian powers try to crush those who stand up for democracy. The United Nations has declared these acts to be crimes against humanity. This is the regime of Nicolás Maduro. Venezuela has evolved into a brutal, authoritarian state facing a deep humanitarian and economic crisis. Meanwhile, a small elite at the top, shielded by political power, weapons, and legal impunity, enriches itself. In the shadow of this crisis, thousands of women and children are forced into prostitution and human trafficking. Daughters simply disappear. Children become objects of trade, in the hands of criminals who see human desperation as a business opportunity. A quarter of the population has already fled the country, one of the world's largest refugee crises. Those who remain live under a regime that systematically silences, harasses, and attacks the opposition. Venezuela is not alone in this darkness. The world is on the wrong track. The authoritarians are gaining. We must ask the inconvenient question: why is it so hard for us to preserve democracy, a form of government that was conceived to protect our freedom and our peace? When democracy loses, the result is more conflict, more violence, more war. In 2024, more elections were held than in any previous year, but ever fewer are free and fair. The power of the law is misused, independent media are silent, and critics are imprisoned. More and more countries, including those with long democratic traditions, are drifting towards authoritarianism and militarization. Authoritarian regimes learn from each other. They share technology and propaganda systems. Behind Maduro stands Cuba, Russia, Iran, China, and Hezbollah, providing weapons, surveillance, and economic lifelines. They make the regime more brutal and more robust. And yet, amid this darkness, we find Venezuelans who have refused to give up, those who keep the flame of democracy alive, who never yield despite the enormous personal costs. They remind us continually of what is at stake. Many of them are here with us today. Carlos, the poet; Claudia, the activist; Pedro, the university professor; Ana Luisa, the nurse; Corina, the grandmother; Antonio, the opposition politician; Venezuela's president-elect, Edmundo González Urrutia. The Nobel Peace Prize laureate, María Corina Machado, has done everything in her power to be able to attend the ceremony here today. A journey in a situation of extreme danger. Although she will not be able to reach this ceremony and today's events, we are profoundly happy to confirm that she is safe and that she will be with us here in Oslo. At the heart of the battle for democracy shines the simple truth. Democracy is more than a form of government. It is also the basis for lasting peace. Millions of Venezuelans know this. Year after year, students, trade unions, journalists, business groups, and ordinary citizens have mobilized in waves of resistance. They have filled the streets in protest. When their votes were taken away, they banged pots and pans. When state surveillance is inescapable, they whisper. People across the political spectrum from communists to conservatives, have risen to challenge the regime. The opposition has tried one strategy after another. Through it all, they have said, "We strive not for revenge, but for justice, for the sanctity of the ballot box, for democracy and for peace." But they are told in reply that those things are impossible, that they will fail. And when the Venezuelans asked the world to pay attention, we turned away. As they lost their rights, their food, their health and safety, and eventually their own futures, much of the world stuck to old narratives. Some insisted Venezuela was an ideal egalitarian society. Others wanted only to see a struggle against imperialism. Still others choose to interpret Venezuelan reality as little more than a contest between superpowers, overlooking the bravery of those who seek freedom in their own country. What all these observers have in common is this: the moral betrayal of those who actually live under this brutal regime. If you only support people who share your political views, you have understood neither freedom nor democracy. Yet many critics stop there. They see local democratic forces cooperating by necessity with actors they dislike and use that to justify withholding support. This put ideological conviction ahead of human solidarity. How should we regard those who use all their energy finding fault with the hard choices that brave defenders of democracy have had to make, instead of recognizing their courage and their sacrifice, or asking how we too can help fight dictatorships? It is easy to stand on principle when someone else's freedom is at stake. But no democracy movement operates in ideal circumstances. Activist leaders must confront and resolve dilemmas that we onlookers are free to ignore. People living under dictatorship often have to choose between the difficult and the impossible. Yet many from us, from a safe distance, expect Venezuela's democratic leadership to pursue their aims with a moral purity their opponents never display. This is unrealistic, this is unfair, and it shows ignorance of history. Many who have stood at this podium to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, including Lech Walesa and Nelson Mandela, knew well the dilemmas of dialogue. In authoritarian systems, dialogue can lead to improvement, but it can also be a trap. Dialogue is often used to buy time, create division, and control the agenda. María Corina Machado has participated in dialogue processes for years. She has never rejected the principle of talking to the other side, but she's dismissed empty processes. Peace without justice is not peace. Dialogue without truth is not reconciliation. Venezuela's future can take many forms, but the present is one thing only. It is horrific. That is why
that is the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony that is currently happening. Remember, this year's Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded to Venezuela's opposition leader, María Corina Machado. She is not present at this ceremony because, remember, she's living in hiding. Her daughter, Anna, will be receiving this award on her behalf. We'll keep getting you more updates on this. At the moment, we're slipping into a short break.